welcome back. Saudi Arabia, Egypt, UAE, Bahrain, Yemen and Libya have all snapped ties with the Gulf state of Qatar, alleging that it funds terrorists. The rivalry goes back in part to Egypt's Spring Revolution, when Saudi Arabia and Qatar, the two Sunni neighbors with the highest GDPs in the region, were on opposite sides. Riyadh backed the military, which ousted the country's first democratically elected politician, Mohammed Morsi. Qatar backed him and now finds itself paying for that and more. But where is Qatar and what makes it one of the main international headlines at the moment? Our senior foreign editor, Padma Rao, has this explainer.
Brotherly battles, tribal feuds. The sands of the Persian Gulf are the stuff that historical legends are made of. But the crisis is clear and present. Ever since a host of Gulf nations snapped diplomatic ties with Qatar last week, the tiny sheikhdom stands almost entirely abandoned by its erstwhile blood brothers today. Qatar has long-standing relations with Shiite Iran, Syria and Lebanon. Saudi and the other Gulf states consider Syria and Iran their enemies. But where is Qatar and how much do we know about the little kingdom? Take a look at the 5 highest global per capita incomes in the world. Qatar earns more than $135,000, Luxembourg over $104,000, Singapore $87,855, Brunei well over $76,000, and Kuwait $71,887. And where is Saudi Arabia? With a per capita income of $55,158, Saudi Arabia languishes just after the United States at 12th place. And what in the world does Qatar own? A lot that is wide and varied. Qatar owns, in part, 17% of Volkswagen Car Company, worth $11 billion, 9.8% of Rosneft Oil Company Russia, worth $6.7 billion, 4% of Total SA Oil France, worth $5.1 billion. In full, the Shard, Europe's tallest skyscraper, London, UK, worth $1.9 billion. Paris Saint-Germain Football Club, France, worth $0.13 billion. Including Harrods and the Chelsea Barracks, Qatar owns 24 million square foot of prime real estate in London and is often called the biggest landlord of the capital of the United Kingdom. And what is life like in Qatar? Qatar hosts Indians, 6.5 lakh. 25% of the total population. Nepali, less than 3.5 lakh, 13.5% of the total population. And Qataris, 3.1 lakh, 12% of the total population. But Qatar is embroiled in a crisis ever since its official news agency defended Iran, the sworn enemy state of all other Gulf countries, as a big regional power. The offices of its international news network, Al Jazeera, have been banned from all states opposed to Qatar, and its economy and connectivity stand threatened. Qatar confronts a flight ban between the capital Doha and other Gulf states. National carrier Qatar Airways banned from flying to Gulf states. A shortage of 40% of Qatar food supplies caused by sealing of the land border by Saudi Arabia. A delay in the construction of 8 stadia for the 2022 Football World Cup. But the desert states are famous for their shifting sands. Neighbor Kuwait, no stranger to blockades from its neighbors itself, has extended a helping hand. Leaders of the two countries, Qatar and Kuwait, have met to try and soothe tempers and find a way out. And extending an even longer arm right across the Atlantic is President Donald J. Trump, the man who ironically may have himself instigated the blacklisting of Qatar for its support of Iran and Syria, which America considers terrorist states. But if the dictum, "my enemy's enemy is my best friend," holds good amongst the ancient tribes of Arabia, Donald Trump won't find many takers, at least not in Qatar.
That there is a widespread belief here that Iran has...
And joining me in the studio is a man who understands the region very well, Dayakar, former ambassador of India to Iraq and Jordan. Good evening, Ambassador. Good to have you on the show. A small nation tucked away in the Gulf is creating ripples worldwide. I'll take it up from where this report left. How important is Qatar in the global scheme of things?
You know, Qatar is important for several reasons. On the economic side, of course, the largest exporter of LNG. Then it has an important role to play in OPEC. More important than its activism its activist foreign policy has pushed it into the focus. For instance, it has contacts with the Taliban, Hamas, and even in the Eastern Europe.
Brotherhood.
Sorry?
The Muslim Brotherhood.
Muslim Brotherhood, and also some Russian terrorist groups. In fact, one of them was shot in Doha by a Russian agent some years back. So they keep these contacts to project as a kind of a soft power, I suppose, because they are not helping them in their goals, but they're giving them a point of contact. And Taliban was able to talk to the American interlocutors to release one of their prisoners in Kabul. And Hamas was able to talk to, and kind of, it did not go very far, but the point was that there is a contact forum there. So this activist policy of Qatar has given it a profile larger than its size warrants, and they're comfortable with that. Sometimes an Al Jazeera television station, its outreach to all over the globe, it affected quite a few countries. In fact, all major Arab countries at one time or other suffered or felt suffered from the Al Jazeera coverage on human rights or other financial dealings and so on. They protested, and there were quite a friction over there. So Al Jazeera has this kind of outreach, and it has a space where it moves in. For instance, Al Jazeera has a global outreach, and Arab people, it's a very popular channel with the Arab people, although governments may not like it. So this kind of profile it has created for itself has given it some importance. And it has also donated a lot of money to Hamas, Syrian government, the previous government. It's a deep purse, and dollar diplomacy helps. So this has made it quite. And then also it takes a contrarian view on many issues within the Gulf. Gulf cooperation.
Now Kuwait is trying to mediate. Is it possible? What sort of a...
I think Kuwait has done a wise step in not breaking relations with Qatar, so that it has positioned itself as a mediator. And the Sheikh of Qatar, the Emir of Qatar, is a well-respected person and is mediating, and there is some, at least it's not escalated any further. That itself is there. Qatar is responding positively, and the United Arab Emirates has laid some conditions. There should be a rigid one, because they can't go back. This time actually little deeper than the last time. 2 years before, when they withdrew ambassadors, it just lasted for a few years and only the district. But this time it has gone into quite deeper, even the people-to-people contacts, because this in the Arab setting there are intermarriages, business partnerships, and so many things. They all come to a halt. They're broken up. So this affects not only the governments but the people, and the pressure would be more on Qatar. So I think the next few days, even Turkey has offered to intervene. Even the United States said that, the Pentagon, that they would like to see that these tensions ease. So it's in the...
But Donald Trump almost took credit for the tensions and said, look, I spoke to them, and then Qatar has been shown...
He did it to meet the need of the hour, that one, but he missed without taking into consideration the larger picture. The Pentagon made a statement because they have a big base there, probably the largest base in the Middle East, from where they used missiles to fire at Taliban and the Syria and Iraq against the Islamic State. So there is very much a need, but the statements of Sheikh Tamim supposedly said in Riyadh, advising moderation towards Iran, I think that had provoked this reaction.
And you talked about how people are being impacted. Indians are caught in the crisis, 6.5 lakh of them. How worried should they be? What should the government of India be doing? What is it doing right now?
You know, there are 6.5 lakh, 650,000 Indians in Qatar, the largest one, twice the size of the native population.
Yes.
They are respected, they are for hard work and skills, a political nature, so on. At this point of time, it's more psychological than anything else because of the media coverage, attention. I don't think there is anything to alarm about, because in 1991, 2003, there was similar thing. It's not a warlike situation there. It is kind of ostracization of Qatar, and Qatar has enough money to tide over this one, although at a financial cost. So I don't think the Indian community should alarm. should be alarmed.
Some are saying it's an opportunity for the Indians because people from other Arab states, working professionals, laborers, will be going out. And so Indians can fill in the gap. Do you see it that way?
No, there is, but it wouldn't be that big a thing, space created for India. Even the trade side also, because now the trade is disrupted with Saudi Arabia. So India has some opportunities. These are temporary disruptions on which India can benefit. But in the long term, I think the situation will normalize. It has to, because Qatar and Saudi Arabia and the other Gulf countries have more in common among themselves than between Qatar and Iran in terms of historical, geographical, cultural and governance issues. So I do not think this kind of situation will last long, and given the role played by the other Gulf, particularly Kuwait, I think there would be a via media and the situation has not hardened as far as I could see from the Saudi side, and Qatar has not escalated their conciliatory statements. So a forward movement can be expected, in my view, in the next coming weeks, days.
Right. In the meantime, thousands of people are finding more expensive air tickets and
Sure.
travel plans being thrown awry. So that is one consequence for the people, but largely you remain optimistic, and that's
It affected financially everyone, the governments, the people, governments of Qatar, government of even Saudi Arabia, because they have cut off. The trade is lost. 40% of the needs of the Qatar are met by Saudi imports because of the economies of scale.
Yeah.
So it's I think in my view, the peak crisis is not going to escalate. It's there. We reached the peak crisis. We are already at the peak crisis.
Okay. Ardayakar, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And as we wrap this show, some thoughts for this man. Lieutenant Umar Fayaz would have turned 23 today. He did not live to see this day. He was dragged out of a family wedding in Kulgam and fired at close range a few weeks back. Militants shot him in his head and chest. He was targeted for joining the army, for becoming a role model for the youth of his state. We're leaving you with some images as we pay a tribute to the young martyr. Thanks very much for watching.